What's up, guys? It's Dynasty the Mountaintops back again for the divisional round, going into the Final Four this week, as a lot of other places call it, but we call it the AFC and NFC Championship game here in football. So, super excited. Some great matchups, one rough one, to be honest. But we'll talk about those in just a few minutes. I'm obviously here with my awesome co-host here, Jeremy. How you doing tonight, my man?
I'm doing fantastic. We've had some great football. We're going to have some great discussion. Let's get to it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to obviously talk about the game last night, but we're also going to talk about injuries, coaching carousel, which is going crazy right now, all the big news that's going on in football that does matter in fantasy. So we'll definitely talk about that. Second season update real quick, and then we're going to dive into the playoffs game by game like we did last week. And then the main piece of what it's going to be this week is rule changes. Now, I know in both of my leagues that I'm in, dynasty-wise, we do a lot of we do our winter meeting, quote unquote, as we call it. And then that's when we make a lot of changes. So we wanted to bring this to the attention of everyone early, right now, so that these can kind of be food for thought for you in the future. So we'll talk about those in just a little bit. But first off, even before the NFL, we got to talk about the national championship game briefly. Me and you talked about it real quick before we jumped on here. But obviously, Indiana goes undefeated, 16-0, incredible year, beating the Hurricanes, who some people, especially if you're a Notre Dame fan, think shouldn't even have been in it, but they should have, obviously. So that was good to see. And my biggest takeaway from this, and I'll just kind of take the floor for a second, is if anyone had a question about Fernando Mendoza being the number one overall draft pick in a dynasty draft or a legitimate NFL draft, should have been sealed last night. This is one of the best defenses in the country that he played. They scored on him. The run that he had on fourth down to basically put the team on his shoulders, got crushed by a hit, spins out of it, dives for the incredible play. It's a highlight reel play in one down. That was the solidification for me. If I had a number one pick, which I never do because I always go for the championship every year, if I did have a number one pick, Fernando Mendoza would be a easy number one pick for me with his wheels, with his motor as well. Now, he's not Lamar Jackson, but he still does have a little bit of a motor to be able to break tackles, run, scramble around if need be. So that was my biggest takeaway. My second biggest takeaway is that, and this isn't even fantasy, Ruben Bain Jr. is a dude. And if you don't know him because you only pay attention to offense, because this is a fantasy football podcast, you might want to pay attention to where he goes because you might not want to play guys against running backs against him. Just a future reference. What about you? I know you said you didn't have a chance to watch the game, but you probably heard a little bit about it today throughout the sports media.
Yeah, I absorbed as much as I could via the post game and sports media as I possibly could. I fortunately do have a first overall pick in the one league that we are in together in DVP. I think I'm pretty close to it. If not, I am. I think I actually have two potential first round picks. So one of them I am quarterback needy. So I am in need of. I'm looking forward to picking him up. And look, I don't need him to be Lamar Jackson. I find that the quarterbacks that are kind of a better hybrid, that they can run the ball but can throw the ball as well. Not knocking Lamar that he can't, but Lamar is known for his legs, not his arm. The quarterbacks that are known for both, those are the ones that are deadly. And Mendoza, with the right coaching system and the right franchise to lead the way, he has potential to be one of the better ones coming out of the draft. So looking forward to seeing him, seeing the official landing spot. I think it's a no-brainer. He ends up going to Vegas. They are in need of a quarterback, and he is, in fact, one. And to be honest with you, he's hit a lottery. If he ends up going to Vegas, he's hit the lottery because he's tied to Tom Brady. And I mean, after all, he's the GOAT. So I mean, it's a good situation all around.
And he's tied to freak guys for the last 2 years that were drafted, in Brock Bowers and Ashton Genty as well.
Great call out.
Not to mention the young guys who I do believe if Fernando Mendoza is the quarterback, Jack Besh automatically skyrockets in my eyes. Now, I talked a lot about Jack Besh last year, and he didn't really show up too much. For some reason, the Raiders thought they were good enough to actually compete last year, so they wanted to use the veterans. But I think with the opportunity that he presents, Fernando Mendoza, especially those back shoulder throws that he was throwing all over the place through the playoffs, a Jack Besh, or is it? Please help me with the other rookie from last year, Trey Tuck. No,
Trey Harris.
No, for the Raiders.
Oh, Trey Tucker.
It was Trey Tucker. Okay, so those two guys, without a Lockett, probably with no Jacoby Myers, I mean they're gonna have to produce unless they go out and get one of these wide receivers in the draft as well. So we'll see about that. But I know in my leagues, hopefully no one's listening from them. But if I don't have one of those running Raiders, it can't be that expensive right now because of what they did. So I'd be looking to get them as well. With the knowledge that Mendoza is probably going to be a Raider, like you said, especially being able to possibly be groomed by Brady, which is a great call by you. So, yeah, it was a fun game. I thought Miami was going to come back. I think Carson Beck also is going to skyrocket a little bit in people's eyes. He had a great, I thought, a good game until the last play where the wide receiver didn't even realize he was getting the ball thrown to him. So, and the interception happens. But, yeah, fun game to watch. Indiana didn't finally crush somebody, so that was good to see. Being an ACC fan, I was a little sad, but good for Indiana there. So moving on, was there anything else you want to talk about the college football championship?
No, it was a fun season. This is my favorite part of college football. I love watching college football, but to be honest with you, I enjoy my pro football a little bit more. I'm looking forward to the now part. Who declares for the draft and the combine, and everything's a little bit local this year. So it's going to be a little bit more entertaining and a little bit more involved, at least interest-wise, because it's right down the river. So I'm looking forward to it overall.
Yeah, no, it's going to be right here in Pittsburgh, which is going to be awesome. And unfortunately, the Steelers don't have a very high draft pick, but that's also fortunate because they're always good. So we'll see what happens with there. But we did have some games this past weekend, and with those games came injuries. We always start at the top with a negative with the NFL. So first off, Bo Nix, ankle out for the playoffs. Probably, I'll probably going to have a rough offseason as well in my estimation there. Jared Stidham to start. He has not thrown a pass since week 18 of 2024, I believe I heard. So we'll see what happens there in an NFL game. Obviously, he's probably thrown in practice, but yeah, we'll see what happens there. A lot of people think the Patriots are probably going back to the Super Bowl, is what I've heard there. But do you think that that injury? Do you think that affects Bo Nix for next year because of the ankle injuries that we saw from Cousins and Rodgers?
I don't think this is going to be something because they nipped it in the butt immediately. He's already had surgery. I think he's going to have the best rehab possible, and I think he's going to be good to go for next season. It obviously is going to impact him significantly now. But hey, the Denver Broncos lost Bo Nix here, but the Denver Broncos defense didn't lose a soul. And with Hufanga and everybody involved there, I mean, the team's defense is going to step it up a notch. So I'm anticipating that to be a decent game, regardless of Jared Stidham being the quarterback or not. But to answer your question, no, I don't believe that the ankle injury is going to impact Bo Nix into next season, unlike our next injury that is going to have significant impact.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. So Zach Charbonnet, torn ACL, out for the playoffs. ACL probably about 9 months, going to miss a little bit of time in the regular season. The reason that this brings up that this is really important in fantasy that I see is Kenneth Walker's a free agent. Obviously, Kenneth Walker's they're going to be their number one going down the stretch here. Could win a Super Bowl with the Seahawks. They're that good. But what happens now? Like, everyone expected him to leave because they were going to keep Charbonnet, and Walker was going to go somewhere else to be a number one. They were both going to be number ones, and everybody was going to be happy. Now, with Zach Charbonnet hurt, and like I said, this is probably going to linger into at least the beginning of the regular season, you would think. I mean, we're in January now, so 9 months is September, middle of September. So obviously he might be able to come back quicker than that, but we'll see. What does this do to Kenneth Walker? All those shares that people were kind of secretly trying to get from what I overheard, what happens to those shares now? Are you still as excited when it still could be the same backfield midway through the regular season next year? What are your thoughts on that?
I like Walker here. I know he has an injury history, but right now you're looking at Charbonnet going to be gone for at minimum, with all things pointing north, 9 months. You're looking at closer to a year with this ACL, especially for him to get back to full game ship. So I'm liking my Kenneth Walker shares because the Kenneth Walker shares without Zach Charbonnet are solid. The running game, the offensive line for the Seattle Seahawks overall is a solid setup. And Walker's just now got himself a little bit more shares in regards to getting the ball here. I know this is going to increase some of the backfield a little bit for whoever else is in the backfield for Seattle, but Kenneth Walker is going to be the ball hog now, in my opinion. And I don't necessarily I do see them still committed to Charbonnet, so I don't necessarily see them drafting a running back high in the draft or going to getting a top free agent to help complement Walker with Charbonnet coming back at the end of the season next season.
Yeah, and they do like Kalani as well. But obviously that's a big downgrade from a Charbonnet and a Walker, obviously. But as a change of pace or a take a breath back, as I like to call it, for the main running back, Kalani will probably mix in there as well. This also opens up Breece Hall to basically say, okay, who wants me? In my eyes as well, for free agency wise as well. But we'll talk about free agency after the Super Bowl comes through here, February, March. So the other big news, obviously, is the coaching carousel that's going on right now. Another person bites the dust. Sean McDermott gets fired from the Bills as their head coach. Kind of a shock to me, but I mean, I don't know how much better you can do than get to the Super Bowl, I guess, than Sean McDermott did. But we have him out. We have John Harbaugh hired as the head coach by the Giants, obviously the former Ravens head coach. Kevin Stefanski hired as the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, former Browns head coach last year. Robert Saleh hired as the head coach of the Tennessee Titans, former 49ers defensive coordinator. This past year, prior to that, he was the Jets head coach, and prior to that, he was the defensive coordinator for the 49ers as well. And then Jeff Hafley hired as the head coach hired as the head coach of the Dolphins. Sorry, I wrote Packers. Obviously, he's from the Packers. And the thing that caught my attention on this is the new GM is from Green Bay. He got plucked from Green Bay to go down to Miami, so he brought his defensive coordinator down there with him. I guess my question to you is, outside of Sean McDermott, because obviously that's a shock. I believe it's a shock, at least. Maybe you don't think so. Fantasy-wise, what is the best situation that now we're seeing? Like, who do you believe might elevate our fantasy options? If that makes sense.
I think the first two you mentioned are going to elevate the fantasy options just because of the way that they are formatted as offensively minded coaches, Kevin Stefanski and John Harbaugh, in a sense that they're, former offensively coaches. Like, for example, we know what Stefanski can do with tight ends. If they can acquire and if they can obtain Kyle Pitts, the world is their oyster for that. And obviously what Stefanski's been able to do with the running game in Cleveland with having Nick Chubb and what he was able to do this past year with Judkins and Sampson and everything in the past. So I think, your Bijan shares are looking kind of pretty. And John Harbaugh, I think, is going to be one hell of a hire in combination with Jackson Dart. My Jackson Dart shares are super excited with this combination. I think he's going to bring in the right team to build around Jackson Dart. I think that they understand the importance of it. So I think out of all the coaches that possibly could come around, there's been very few that excited me as a Giants follower and a Jackson Dart fan, but John Harbaugh was one. So I think he's going to have significant impact almost out the gate.
Yeah, I agree. I think it matters who the offense coordinator for a lot of these are going to be. Stefanski excluded, because Harbaugh, his guy Greg Roman is now available. Might not be a bad call there. I don't know if my Malik Neighbors shares would like that too much, but to help out a running quarterback as Jackson Dart kind of is, I think Greg Roman would be able to help him out there. And obviously the guy who was in Baltimore right now has interviewed for the job as well, but he hasn't signed anything yet. So we'll see what happens there. Obviously the two defensive coaches, Halfley, you have no idea who his quarterback's going to be. I'm thinking it's going to be Ewers, but we'll see. And then Salah, he stays on the defensive side of the ball and doesn't really focus on the offense all that much, is what we've noticed when he was in the Jets. But
what do you think about Malik Willis going to Miami?
I am not a Willis fan after seeing him for 3 games.
I am not personally as well, but the GM.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Good call.
Formerly of the Packers is now is GM of the Miami Dolphins, and I know Malik Willis was either in the last year of his contract or closing out or a free agent this year. There's obviously the question marks with Tua. There's question marks with Ewers. I like Ewers, but he is still a rookie. So I mean, I could see them bringing in Malik Willis. Just the food for thought, something to think about.
No, I've heard of Willis at a lot of different places. That does make sense to the head coach of the Packers, the GM of the Packers. Makes a lot of sense to bring in the former Packer who played pretty well when he had the opportunity to. I won't disagree with that. I don't know if you want him to be the head of your franchise right away. That kind of worries me a little bit, to be honest. But we'll see. I think the biggest hire, though, is definitely Kevin Stefanski when it comes to fantasy relevance. Kyle Pitts was the number 2 tight end on the year. And granted, Bowers was hurt, Kittle was hurt. Don't care. He was the number 2 tight end on the year. And now he gets the guy who has made David Njoku relevant. And this past year, Harold Fannin extremely relevant. Now he gets the toy of Kyle Pitts, which everyone says was a generational tight end, right? So I think now you get to see him unlock. Bijan Robinson, obviously, one of, if not the best running back in football right now, one of in that conversation for sure. And then Drake London, hopefully healthy next year. You got 2 options at quarterback. Which way does he go for that in Penix? And it sounds like Cousins as well. So I think the offensive side of the ball is going to be really interesting for Atlanta next year in a division that you can easily win, for sure. I know that we think the Panthers are getting better, but I think that was the key hire for me personally was Kevin Stefanski. Not that I think he's a great coach, but I do think he got the most out of the tight end position, which is something they needed if Kyle Pitts is able to stay, if they're able to keep Kyle Pitts there. So, that was my biggest takeaway on that. The defensive ones don't really do too much for us for fantasy, obviously, until they hire the offense coordinator. So I can't say too much on that. But yeah, we'll see what happens there for sure.
Why don't you fill in our listeners about your second season, Mickey?
Yeah, so second season, we talked about this last week. It's a little, it's a fantasy league.
Continuance.
Yeah, it's a fantasy league. based off of just the playoffs. As I said last week, you take one player from each team, but you have to fill out the correct roster positionings. And gave you some strategy about that last week. We're not going to go over that again. But out of 26 people, at the end of the wild card round, I was in 7th. At the end of the divisional round, I'm in 5th. Like I said, I won it last year, so doing something right here. I don't know how, but I don't like the fact that my kicker and defense are both still both had to play 2 games. That doesn't make me excited, but kicker ended up scoring 17 points last week, so that was kind of awesome. We'll talk about him in a minute. We usually don't talk about kickers, but when you score 17 points in fantasy, we might want to talk about you for a second. But yeah, it's going well. It's a fun league because you do one thing and that's it. Like, it's like best ball, meaning like you only have to draft once, pay attention once to like who you want to get. And then after that, it's just, all right, what are they going to do? Right? And you get to watch them throughout, and it makes the playoffs, in my opinion, a little bit more fun because I don't have a horse in the race and didn't think I was going to have much of a horse in the race with the Steelers this year. So it's fun for me. I have a good time with it. But we're going to get into the playoffs, and through that, I'm going to kind of talk about how the team did throughout the games we go through here. So first off, we have Buffalo Bills play the Denver Broncos on Saturday. 33-30, Denver wins in overtime. Minus all the calls, don't care about all that. We're just going to talk fantasy-wise really in game here. But for the Bills, Josh Allen, 25 of 39, 283 yards, 3 touchdowns, did throw 2 interceptions, 12 carries for 66 yards. James Cook, who is on my team, 24 carries, 117 yards, caught 2 of his 3 passes for 24 yards as well. And for the Broncos, the injured Bo Nix, well, he got injured late in the game, but Bo Nix, 26 of 46, 279 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, also ran the ball for 29 yards on 12 carries. Marvin Mims Jr., sure you had that one on your bingo card. 8 catches on 8 targets, caught them all, 93 yards and a touchdown. And then the defense came to play as they have all year. 3 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, 2 interceptions, 3 forced fumbles that were recovered, 2 more that the Bills recovered. And then my kicker, Will Lutz, went 4 for 4 in field goals, 1 for 50 yards, 3 extra points, 3 for 3 there, and 17 points in fantasy. So you always have to talk about a kicker if they get over 15 for you.
Impressive work.
Right. So a little bit more names than we usually talk about in one section there, but when you have the defense and the kicker, because it was their game, that's the reason why. So your takeaways, my man.
No, shout out to Will Lutz, 4 for 4 in the field goals. Obviously, the 50-yarder and then the extra points. Those are not always a gimme anymore. So, Will Lutz, shout out to Will Lutz. But overall, this was a decent game. This lived up to the expectations. I anticipated it to be close. I didn't anticipate it to be this slugfest that it was. And it was entertaining football. Let's get real. I mean, it was probably the game of the weekend. We had overtime and a high-scoring game. Like you mentioned, Bo Nix with his broken ankle, but he finished the game. That says something. So yeah, overall, I think this was a very great start to the playoff weekend.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like I said, minus the refs, I don't want to get on a soapbox about that whole thing. Questionable calls, whatever you want to say. But heck of a game. Both teams really good, in my opinion. So, unfortunately you can't say it enough. Unfortunately, the Broncos lose their starting quarterback going into the AFC Championship game. It kills you there. So, although Nick Foles has reminded the Patriots the last time they played a backup quarterback in a playoff game was the Super Bowl and they lost. So we'll see what happens. I thought that was really funny. He called that out. So
yeah, crazier things have happened, but it's got to be pretty crazy for him to pull that win off. It's going to be because New England's defense is nothing to sneeze about. Drake May has that offense clicking. They have a two-headed monster running back. Like New England very well could represent the AFC here with ease. They could go into Denver and really tear that game open. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, that Denver defense is good, but the Patriots defense is good as well. So it's going to come down to, I think, who can make the plays, Stidham or, in my opinion, MVP, Drake May. So we'll see what happens next week. We'll talk about it, I'm sure. Next game we had was San Francisco 49ers, Seattle Seahawks. This game started and ended after the kickoff. So it was like a minute game, I think.
Yeah.
41-6. Yeah. Seattle just absolutely demolishes the Niners. Christian McCaffrey injured in the first half, but listen to the stats because he was going to have a game. 11 carries, 35 yards, 5 catches on 6 targets for 39 yards as well. So already over 70 yards in less than a half. The dude was about to go off. But that was kind of the nail in the coffin is when he went down in the first half. What are you going to do? Like, no Kittle, no Pearsall, no defense, no. I mean, it was just.
They were in trouble. Yeah.
Once CMC went down, it was kind of like next season, let's go kind of deal. So, unfortunately for them. So, but for the Seahawks, Kenneth Walker, 19 carries for 116 yards, 3 touchdowns, scored every touchdown for the offense of the Seahawks. Also caught 3 passes on 3 targets for 29 yards. Defense, 2 fumble recoveries, an interception. Kickoff return from Rashid Shaheed, our dude, 95 yards there. That was the start of the game, and that's why I said it was over after Rashid Shaheed touched the end zone. Because it was just all downhill from there for the Niners. And then Jackson Smith and Jigba. Only reason we're talking about him is because he was on my team, so I'm going to talk about him real quick, but he did not have a day. 3 catches on 4 targets, 19 yards. He did get a touchdown to save you a little bit, but I think it was like 9 points or something like that. So not a great day from him that you don't expect, but this is why we play fantasy, because you never know what happens.
No, that's exactly well said. Christian McCaffrey broke my heart because you could tell he was ready. He came to play, and it broke my heart that he got hurt. He did so well all season, and like I said, I've even talked him up to be Offensive Player of the Year or even MVP at moments. The team was built properly, but that's around a defense that got hurt. So the team now focused its entire game plan around Christian McCaffrey, and when you lose Christian McCaffrey, you lose everything. But I think you nailed it. When Rashid Shaheed ran that opening kickoff back, you had the crowd just absolutely bonkers. And they were already up 7-0. Seattle was just on the top of their game, and all the pressure was off of Sam Darnold because they were already up. The special teams took care of it. The defense, and then obviously stepped up immediately. It just was the perfect storm, and it all started with that crack of lightning known as Shaheed.
Yeah, I think that's his 3rd return for the Seahawks for a touchdown
since the trade.
So since the middle of the season. So he was a dude for them in special teams for sure. Hopefully they'll give him a little bit of run on the offense next year because we both like him. I know we've talked about him.
Yes.
For the 49ers, it was hard to find anything for them. That's why I had to pull Chris McCaffrey. He was the one player that was on my team for this team, obviously. Who else are you going to pick? Unless it's George Kittle, and thank God I didn't do that. So rough end of the season for the Niners, but they had a heck of a year. And the Seahawks move on. Houston Texans at the New England Patriots. We're back in Foxborough for a playoff game. Shocking. 28-16, New England wins. The Texans defense is about all we can talk about, and that was who I picked on the team. So good pick by me. 5 sacks, 3 for Will Anderson Jr., 2 for Danielle Hunter. Those 2 edge rushers are insanely talented. 9 tackles for loss. Other than that, an interception, 2 fumble recoveries, both on Drake May, both recovered by Azeez Al-Shaair.
Well done.
Yeah, I was practicing that one. And for the Patriots, Ramondre Stevenson is the story, I believe. 16 on the offense, at least. 16 carries, 70 yards. Also went 4 for 4 for 11 more yards, 81 yards total. Kayshon Boutte, 3 catches on 5 targets, 75 yards, and an insane catch for a touchdown. The winning touchdown, I believe.
Yes.
If you haven't seen it, look it up. It's an insane catch. You do not expect a name the caliber of Kayshon Boutte to make this catch. Let me put it that way. And then for the defense, they played great as well. 3 sacks, 6 tackles for loss, 4 interceptions, pick 6 for Marcus Jones, 2 picks for Carlton Davis, and also a fumble recovery and a partridge in a pear tree, it seems like, as well. Notice we're saying a lot of defenses. I think that's interesting because they were the ones who showed up. I mean, defense wins championships. We talk about that all the time. The teams that are left have defense on their repertoire. So, and then Drake May, I think he's the MVP. Not so much in this game. 16 of 27, 179 yards, 3 touchdowns, through an interception, and then 4 carries for 10 yards. They didn't let him run around too much. I think that kind of hurt him a little bit in the processing as well. So, your thoughts?
Yeah, defense wins championships in my opinion, and I think you mentioned it. I think you did mention it, but I think you mentioned how well the defense was for the Patriots. Yes, the 6 tackles for loss and 4 interceptions, including a pick 6. New England, like I was mentioning earlier, New England's defense is nothing to write home about. I think Jared Stidham his hands are going to be full this Sunday. I really do. Patriots are one heck of a team right now. They, like I said, they're clicking on all cylinders. They have everything going for them offensively, defensively, special teams, head coaching. They definitely could represent the AFC easily with or without Jared Stidham.
Yeah. And my biggest question coming out of this game has really nothing to do with the Patriots. It's really, is CJ Stroud okay? Like, that's 2 games in a row where he looked like one of the worst quarterbacks in football. Hands down. Are you worried about him coming in next year, or do you just think it's 2 pretty good defenses he played? He was rattled.
I'm holding my breath for the last week because this is when they start doing the locker room cleanouts and everything. That's when you start hearing about injuries and everything like that, or guys who are playing hurt. So I'm holding my breath for a little bit. I'm kind of hoping that CJ Stroud was playing hurt just with those numbers that they were. But I mean, if someone's interested in him, I'd listen, but I don't know too many people are going to become knocking on the door for CJ Stroud with the past 8 to 10 quarters of football that he has played.
Yeah, it's been rough. So I don't know what to do right now. The defense is absolutely incredible. He kept them in a bunch of games this year. Davis Mills looked as good as CJ Stroud looked, I thought, this year, to be honest with you. So we'll see what happens. But that was the one thing that came out of this game, fantasy-wise, that I was kind of like, CJ looks a little rough and has all year for the most part, but there were some games where you saw that magic that he had as rookie year. So this is 2 years in a row that I didn't see a whole lot from him, personally. So we'll see what happens next year, but might be someone who we talk about a lot in the preseason side of things. So next up, in the final game, probably the best game on the weekend. Los Angeles Rams against the Chicago Bears. Rams win in overtime, 20-17. Kyron Williams show is basically what I'm going to say here for the LA Rams. Kyron Williams, 21 carries, 87 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 catches on 5 targets for another 30 yards. A lot of people were worried about Blake Corum coming down the stretch, especially if you were in the playoffs because of Kyron Williams. Blake Corum was taking a little bit of time off of him, but it looks like they were just saving him for the playoffs because he had an incredible game. And Matthew Stafford, 20 of 42, 258 yards as well. No touchdowns, which I was surprised by. But again, 250 yards, nice day for him. So on the other side, the Bears, Caleb Williams, 23 of 42, 257 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. One of them at the end of the game to end the game, really. and then 5 carries for 40 yards as well. DeAndre Swift, 19 carries for 76 yards. And Colston Loveland, who was on my team, that's the only reason we're talking about him, 4 catches on 10 targets for 56 yards. The good thing about Colston Loveland, 10 targets again.
Yeah, 10 targets is a nice number, man. When you get these tight ends getting 8 to 9 targets, these are guys that you're going to want to consistently start. And then Loveland is in double digits on a weekly basis. So, yeah, that 4 for 10 ain't numbers to sneeze at, but that was just a weird day, weird weather. And Loveland was going in there off of a previous game that he balled. So you know that the Rams are going to be all over him. But no, my MVP, I know that you and I have been kind of verbally button heads on this, but my MVP, Matt Stafford, played another fantastic game. No touchdowns, but like you mentioned, Kyron stole both of them. So, hey, points are points. He'll take it. I'm really, really pulling for Stafford here. I'm really hoping he gets at least into the Super Bowl. New England's going to be a tough team to play. Denver's going to be a tough team to play, both defensively. So we'll see what happens, but they got to get through.
Maybe the best defense in the entire NFL.
Sorry, totally drew a blank.
Seattle Seahawks, man, they look incredible on defense. Their offense is looking fine, I guess, but their defense has been insane the last half of the year, or this second half of the year.
So Darnold went into that game not playing 100%, and Darnold seemed like he held his own. I mean, JSN didn't have the biggest day offensively, but Kenneth Walker showed up and that was it. But Darnold went into that game not throwing a ball since Thursday, and they were able to rally the troops and do what they needed to do. So Seattle's no team to sneeze at. Sunday's games are going to be fun. They're going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think there's going to be one game where it might be a little high scoring. Obviously, the NFC. In the AFC, I have no idea if there's going to be points scored or not, to be honest, with those two defenses. It'll be fun to watch, though, for sure, this weekend. Anything else from this past weekend that you kind of saw or anything you wanted to talk about?
No, just that I think the right teams are in there. I think Denver is the right team, just not under the right circumstance with Bo Nix hurting himself. Sorry, Buffalo fans, but I think the right 4 teams are there. I think I honestly don't feel one way. I obviously feel one way or another on the NFC teams, but either team going into the Super Bowl would be fine. Jared Stidham's going to impress me to want me to see him in the Super Bowl. But Jared Stidham's going to have to impress everybody if he wants to get into the Super Bowl to beat the New England team. So I have a Los Angeles Rams, New England Patriots Super Bowl, and we'll see where that goes. What about you?
If that's the case, my 2 quarterbacks play each other in fantasy. That sounds great. I would definitely take that, Jeremy. I like your idea. Thank you.
Hey, what better way to settle the MVP debate than have them play in the Super Bowl together?
Honestly, I lean Drake May, but I get it if it's Stafford. Kind of like I think you feel.
I lean Stafford, but I get it if it's Drake May. Like they both had successful seasons. Yes, they both had successful seasons. They both are at different stages in their careers, but both had fantastic numbers. And the MVP, in summary, is the most valuable player and the one who helps his team escalate. And everybody around Drake May and everyone around Matthew Stafford has excelled this year. So either one deserves the trophy. But to see them both in the Super Bowl, now that is one the script writers cooked on. Let's hope it happens.
Yeah, and like I said, I'll be very happy about that because I more than likely will win our league again this year for second season. That would be great, unless they fall apart. So we're going to move on here. Obviously, we're super excited for the conference championship games. They're going to be fun. It's hard to beat a team 3 times, I will say that. We're going to now transition, not a really good transition, but we're going to transition into giving you some options on rule changes. Now, some of these are pretty easy to implement. Some of them are a little bit more involved. Some of them, we have like 5 categories is how I'm going to explain it. So the first category we have is in-season points. So this is a way that you can either add points or change it up a little bit. And I think most dynasty leagues already have a couple of these, but we're going to talk about it anyway. So first off, we have tight end premium. Jeremy, if you want to explain what that is, I can if you want me to, but it's pretty self-explanatory, to be honest.
Yeah, premium points for tight end catches and tight end touchdowns. Tight ends just have the volume meter cranked up a little bit, the HD meter cranked up a little bit. Tight ends get a little bit of extra love in the point skips.
Yeah, and that's because the position is terrible. So we need to elevate it a little bit, right? So it definitely benefits those top tier guys, but the middle guys move up a little bit. That's kind of where it's at there. Number 2, running back carries. Kind of the same thing. We implemented this in the DVP league, I think last year, where running backs get 0.25 per carry, like a quarter point per carry. So it elevates their points a little bit because everyone's always, if it's a standard league with the PPR, obviously receivers or like a chain get a little bit more of a bump up because they receive the ball more. So we want to give kudos, for lack of a better word, to the Derrick Henrys, to the Nick Chubbs, who don't catch the ball out of the backfield, but are still dogs, right? And that's what this kind of does, is helps even out that distribution from PPR to PPR plus carry, if that makes sense.
No, continue.
Okay. The next one I've never actually done. I've heard some people do it, and I've heard mixed reviews. So individual defensive players. So this is kind of a longer explanation, I guess, but to make it
if you don't mind, I could take this because this is actually something that I am implementing into one of my leagues.
Yeah, perfect.
The IDP is kind of like it kind of helps the defensive aspect get added to the fantasy realm, but it also gives a little bit of fantasy to the defensive aspect. What I mean is the IDP is individual defensive players, where you are drafting individual defensive players rather than defensive units. For example, you are drafting the likes of a Khalil Mack or Max Crosby as opposed to drafting the San Francisco 49ers defensive unit. Each league has their own different setups where you can have either defensive backs, linebackers. You can even go down to linemen if you wanted to, as narrowed it down, or even as far out as safeties, or however you want to break it down position-wise. So the individual defensive player gives a nice little twist and gives the defensive-minded fantasy football folk a little bit of something to chew on. And it gives the fantasy football folk who normally kind of ignore the defensive aspect or don't like the defensive unit, gives them a little bit more of a flake of a fantasy aspect by having individualized players.
Yeah, perfect. I'm glad you took that. That was much better than I would have done. Next up, we have remove the defense and kicker. I recommend this, to be honest with you, because they're the most they're the biggest variables. They're not consistent ever. Even the best kickers in the NFL are up and down, fluctuate depending on how their team is doing, not depending on how they're doing. And then defense, you get a kick return, and that team scores 6 when they get smashed by everything else. So like I said, it's the most variable. I don't like to have it in Dynasty. I do have it in redraft, but it's so hard to have a Dynasty that's just a team, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't draft my offense as an offensive unit, so I don't want to draft my defense as a defensive unit. This is where the IDP aspect comes into play for the defensive individuals that want to do it. Like I don't draft the Los Angeles Chargers offensive team. No, I draft each individual players of how I want to construct my team. And that's exactly how the defense should be done if you're going to have defense. So I'm a big supporter of removing the defensive units and the kickers as well for the ideas of what you just mentioned.
Yeah. And then getting extra points for bigger yardage plays. We actually use this in golf. I think it's 40 yards we do for running backs at least. Having Jahmyr Gibbs, I got that on me a few times, or got that shown on my list there a few times. I forget how many points it is though, but you can kind of pick that. But for the longer runs that the more explosive players have, that's kind of what this is for. Giving credit a little bit more points to the players that are more explosive than the others. So, for instance, a Quentin Johnston, who usually gets balls down the field, right, is going to have a little extra on his receptions than a Keenan Allen who goes 5 yards and first down. Right? You know what I mean? Even though it's the same catch, it's a tougher catch, so they get a little bit more yards, a little bit more points on that. Anything you wanted to add to that? I know it's kind of a weird one, but we did implement it. It seems like it works. I like it because I do have some explosive guys, so that helps.
No, it gives the wide receiver twos that are stuck in wide receiver twos a little bit more girth, like the Jordan Addisons and the T Higgins, because these are guys that are known for some downfield. Jameson Williams, these types of individual players that are known to get downfield, and you can really swing. You can really swing the pendulum there on the win-loss scale by having that go in your favor or against you.
Perfect. And the last one I absolutely hate. So if you want to talk about it, that's fine. I can't stand this one though.
No, it's you can add points for kick or punt return yards. The only argument I would say for this is if you have defensive units, because it's a defensive special team unit, and a lot of times the special team unit aspect of the defensive and special team unit tends to get ignored or forgotten. So if you want to have a defensive unit set up, if you negating the IDP option or removing defense is what we're saying. If you want to stick with the defensive unit, the kick return and punt return yards kind of help. But other than that, I can't really see too much of a benefit to it, especially the way the kickoffs have become lately.
Yeah, we actually have this in our golf league, and I tried to outlaw it, but it didn't work out for me. Where it gives you more players that are going to be relevant as well, even if you're just playing offensive only. For instance, I think it was Keaton Mitchell, who was the returner for the Baltimore Ravens. Didn't play all that much. It might have been Rasheen Ali, actually. I can't remember. One of the backup running backs who don't play that much. He ended up having like 14 points or something like that because he had a bunch of yards. He didn't even score a touchdown. He just had a bunch of yards on special teams. And it just gives you more players to be able to play, right? Now, if Rashid Shaheed, if you started Rashid Shaheed and he does score a touchdown, that makes sense. You get that point. But all the yards that they add, basically free 20 yards or free 15 yards every time you get the ball, every time you punt or kick, is kind of what that is. So it just helps out a lot of the, like a better word, mediocre players that might be on your roster at the end of the bench, is how I look at it. Next up, we have some draft options. So you had one about trading first-round picks, is that right?
Yeah, in the one league that the three-time champion, one individual proposed not trading first-round picks. The argument was to kind of help keep the longevity of each individual team and to help support that, hey, each year's draft, each team's going to have a first-round pick. So the logic was there to kind of help prevent some of these teams who are proverbial tankers or proverbial losers in the league moving their first-round picks and getting them at least some draft stock. That was one that didn't go over too well just because next to elite players, the number one aspect, and if you could ask most people, the number one aspect of trade in Dynasty is first-round picks. I mean, it's kind of a nucleus around the trade for top-tier players and what makes or breaks futures or anything like that. So that didn't get over too well.
Yeah, personally, that's why I think redraft doesn't have as many trades, is because there are no draft pick trades in a lot of those. So redrafts kind of get stale because of the non-ability to trade picks. You're just trading players to trade players at that point, I think. the picks are what open up so many options. Like if you don't have a good quarterback, you can go out and give 3 first-round picks, and boom, you get a maybe not Josh Allen, but you get right underneath him, right? So when you put this on the list, I was like, I'm gonna be too negative on this, so I'm just gonna let you talk.
No, that's fine, because I was negative for it as well. I mean, it's something that somebody suggested, and I understood their logic behind it, but it definitely is a redraft type feel to it. Moving first round picks, it makes the second round picks become too valuable because they're more valuable than what they're actually valued at. A mid second in a 12-team league is not worth what its value would be moving it on caliber of type trades, because you can't move it first. It just didn't work out. It didn't fly. The first round pick trades are just too prevalent, too possible, and too needed.
Absolutely. And like you said, super valuable, unbelievably valuable, especially in good draft classes, for sure. So that one was interesting. Next one, kind of interesting as well. Total Bowl winner gets extra pick in the draft, whether it's whether it's at the end of the first round, the second round, third round, you decide that. But if you win, quote unquote, meaning you are the worst team, you get an extra pick, but you already have the first round picks or the number 1 pick in each round. So again, not necessarily a rule I'm a fan of, but it is out there to be able to use.
Right.
Right. Anything you want to add on that one?
No.
Sounds like you're on the same page as me.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. 100% on the same page. Full agreement on that one. Nothing really bad.
All right. And then the third one for the draft, and I'm sure there's other ones as well. These are just some that we came up with to talk about here. Must pay league fee for the season to trade the first round pick. So what this means is that every single one of your first round picks basically has $50 attached to it whenever you start the season. Only your personal pick. So if you actually already have someone's pick, that doesn't count. So every year, like last year, we gained the 2028, I think, in leagues, at least in sleepers.
Correct.
So that was attached. So in my mind, $50 was attached to that, because when I trade that, because I probably am, knowing how I operate, I'm going to have to pay $50 for that season. So I'm already in 3 seasons. So I ain't leaving. It's really to keep the players that you want in the league, people that are actually moving around and doing things, so that someone's not. We've had this issue before in DVP league, where someone won the chip, sold everybody, sold all of their picks, left nothing, and then left the next year. Like had a horrible season and then left the next year. That's going to prevent that, because he would have been $150 in already, if that makes sense. So that's what that was kind of trying to prevent. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I love this rule. I think this rule is something that needs to be implemented in the beginning of every league. But that's the thing; it needs to be implemented at the beginning. I think this is tough to implement in the middle of a dynasty situation. I think it would be tough to get voted in. Just me personally, I think it would be tough to get voted in, but I'm a big fan of this rule because it does keep these individuals in play. And if these guys don't care about the money and they want to leave, if you're walking in here, there's no draft picks, but hey, 2 years is paid up for, I'm still going to be interested in that quick orphan team, because I know that I'm not going to have any financial output, at least they're but positive. So I think it brings a lot of different. I think it helps solidify and close out a lot of issues that commissioners have. So I'm a big fan of this rule.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't at first, and then the situation that happened. Now I understand why we have it. It's basically how I explained it, 100%. So, like I said, there's probably numerous amounts of draft rules you can implement, and you can come up with things on your own. This is just some things that we've tried or have heard of in the past. So, moving along, we have some structural ones. So, for me, the number one thing that I absolutely think every single dynasty league should have, and I know you don't have it, so I apologize, Jeremy, but is the no trade deadline. And the reason I say this is because yes, you might go out and buy a chip when you're not necessarily the best team getting into the playoffs, but you got to the playoffs, right? But you're making the team that wants to sell better, and everyone's trying to always get better, right? And that's how you can do that, is by not having a trade deadline, because when the trade deadline hits, there's probably out of 12 teams, 8, 9, maybe even 10 that think they have a shot. Now, in some leagues, obviously, like our DVP league last year was kind of black and white, who was good, who was not, and everyone else was selling. But in a lot of leagues, it's kind of convoluted in the middle of the year, and then people start to break away late in the season, and it gives people more of an option to sell the players that they want to be able to sell if they're not making the playoffs. Once they don't make the playoffs, rather than having to worry or not having as much trading at the trade deadline. That's how I look at it.
No, I like this rule as well. The no trade deadline. I support no trade deadline. I understand the number one rebuttal toward having a trade deadline is, hey, individuals are going to, cheat or whatever the situation is. Tanking teams are going to do whatever they need to do. But no, I think if you have these types of issues, you have a bigger issue in your league. I think the no trade deadline should be implemented in all formats.
No, couldn't agree more. Then I wish I would have gotten a little bit more explanation on this. We were talking about this, me and Jimmy, relegation. So in the DVP league, we had a Denver league and a Pittsburgh league. Division. So there were 6 and 6. That's kind of getting molded together at this point now, with people not being able to continue and things like that. So he brought up an idea of kind of like what soccer does, where we have a top division. The 6 teams who make the playoffs are in a division together next year, and the bottom 6 are in a division next year, meaning that 2 teams that were in the bottom are guaranteed to make the playoffs. And it's going to give you a lot more parity. It's automatic parity is how I look at it. And it makes people who are continually tanking not really have to tank as much, I guess, as well. I don't know what you thought about this. Did you talk to Jimmy about this at all?
I did not talk to this. This is absolute news to me. But I kind of like the way you've explained it. I think it helps. It kind of adds the element of divisions, but keeps the divisions fresh by having the newer element of team added into it from the playoffs. Excuse me. So, no, I kind of like this idea. I think I'd be open to it with a little bit more explanation and seeing it.
Yeah, that was the quickest way I could explain it. Was I always think of the Premier League and the Championship League in soccer. I'm a huge soccer fan, so that makes sense to me. Where the bottom 3 teams fall and go to the bottom league, the top of 3 of the top 4 teams from the Championship go to the Premier League. That's kind of where my head went. But we figured out to be whoever makes the playoffs stays in their division for next year, and it means you're going to play the teams in your division twice, but it's not always going to be the same teams you play twice, which is kind of cool as well. So that's another thing that adds to that relegation idea. And then the last one is voting period. I know you wanted to kind of delve into this one a little bit.
Yeah, I guess this is really all depends on how your trade deadline vote goes. So it's if you have other options, for example, you can have the voting go into like a 2-week period. If you want to have, say, end of season voting, you can have a 1-week period, 2-week period, or you can have it breaking into multiple voting periods. So, like Mickey mentioned earlier, we have winter meetings where you can have a winter meeting, a spring meeting, a summer meeting, one of those, 2 of those, any types of those types of aspects as well. So you can go into the voting periods that way too. So just to kind of keep yourself fluid and kind of keep yourself open on different ways that you can implement voting is also another aspect that you could add.
Perfect. Yeah, I didn't know too much about this one, so I was letting you have the floor there. I'm going to let you have the floor on the money side as well. This is the fourth category, and then we'll get into the last one here in just a few minutes. But looks like payout structure was the first one we were going to talk about.
Yeah, the payout structure. There's different ways you can play with the payout structure. I mean, a lot of leagues have like a first, second, third payout structure. But there's also ways that you can have it. For example, in the one league that we had voting, you had a first and second place get paid, but instead of having a third place get paid, you had, quote, a regular season champion get paid. Now this would help either somebody allot two pots and kind of keep everyone competitive on the top, but it also awards a regular season champion some money for if they get buzzsawed in the playoffs. If, say, for example, the championship league that I was in, the guy went undefeated until the last 2 weeks of the playoffs where I beat him and won the championship. Well, he would have won at least some money for being undefeated during that season. So that's one thing you can implement, or you even add some type of bonus or anything on those things. Another thing that was mentioned has a little bit more momentum to it in regards to being passed. It's called the generous benefactor proposal, where the first place team buys the last place team's buy-in for the upcoming season. So I, the champion, would pay for the last place team's buy-in. There's a stipulation for it, though. The stipulation is that the 1-1 pick that they acquire, or their first round, their highest pick that they acquire for that draft, has to be taxied or benched for the entire season. So, for example, if you were able to acquire a Omarion Hampton with the 1-2, you would have to taxi Omarion Hampton for the year, unable to bring him up regardless of your situation, regardless of your status, because you had the first place guy pay for your buy-in. Now, this is 100% optional amongst the two teams, at least in the league that I'm in. But that's another option you can have, at least play with that money there.
Interesting. I've never heard of that one before, so I was kind of laying out for you on that one. That's an interesting concept. I'll have to think about that one. Obviously, I'm not in the league that they're talking about this in with Jeremy. So, and then finally, there are a few different leagues in Dynasty that you can actually implement as well. The first one, not necessarily a different league, but it kind of changes how the league playoffs is made, I guess. It's called victory points or mid scoring. There's a few different names for it. I'm sure you probably have other names that you heard of as well. But anyway, victory points, what they are is you're playing against your competitor that week, the head-to-head, and then you're also playing against the median of the rest of the team's scores. So if you're in the top, let's say you have a 10-team league, if you're in the top 5, you get an extra win. If you're in the bottom 5, you get an extra loss, or you have a loss, regardless what your head-to-head is. So the reason people implement the victory points is mainly because you're really getting in, quote unquote, the best teams in. There's no luck involved at that point. The top teams are usually getting the most points to get into a playoff for that with the victory points. Anything you want to add on that?
No, sir. No, it sounds that is new to me, and yeah, we'll let you on the floor with it as well.
Yeah, we might be talking about that in the offseason. That's why I brought it up. The next one is Empire League. It's just an added piece to a Dynasty League where if a team is a Dynasty for too long, you reset the league. But there's obviously a pot that goes into that they would end up winning an extra pot from the league fees every year. Some money would go into a pot for whatever it would be, 2 in a row, 3 in a row. Some people do 3 out of 5, like whatever the case is, whatever you consider the Empire League to be. If someone were to win in my eyes, it would be 3 years in a row. We'll use that as the example. If someone were to win 3 years in a row, there's no parity. It's kind of getting boring for everybody else. Kind of like where you're at.
Exactly.
To be honest with you.
Yeah, exactly.
You would shuffle the deck and redo it. And you wouldn't have to do it on your own. It's we're done, new league. Like, we're restarting, startup draft, everything's brand new. I like the concept, but then you think about how, with the word dynasty, and the term dynasty is to win often the championship. So I don't know about this one. I'm like 50-50 on it, but I don't know if you had any other thoughts on it as well.
I think the only way that this can be implemented is if you get paid. If that pot exists. If I'm getting paid to blow up my team, if I'm being forced to blow up my team, I'm getting paid to blow up my team, then it goes a little bit better. And obviously, these are bylaws that you've agreed to and votes that you've agreed to. So obviously, there's no one's going to buck this per se when it happens, because it's all known. But I'm a fan of this. I personally, for the listeners that don't know, I'm personally a 3-time champ, and I'm personally blowing up my team voluntarily for the sake of the league. There is no bylaw that indicates that I have to do this, but I want to do it anyway because I like to make the transactions on my team, and I like to maneuver some things around, and I'm stale, at least on that aspect. So I want to blow up my team kind of self-doing it. But, I mean, if I was getting paid to do this, it would be even better for me. So, yeah, I like this rule, and I think it's somebody in my position who has been in the shoes on a 3-time champ looking in, I think it's a fair rule that one who is a multi-time champ should accept.
All right. Yeah, I can see the pros and cons of that one. To be honest, I just think Dynasty, you're trying to have the best team every year. So it kind of defeats the purpose to me. And then finally, one that you include, it's called College Canton C2C. I've heard it a little bit more recently, where you play 2 different fantasy divisions, or not divisions. You play 2 fantasy leagues, basically. You have your NFL league, and then you also have your drafting players in college that you're going to get for your NFL team. But you're also playing. It's pretty cool. I don't know everything about it, but I wanted to.
It sounds like you're playing. It sounds like the concept is you play with your taxi. Is what it sounds like. It's like you're drafting these college kids, and you're playing with these college kids that are going to eventually be on your pro team. But I mean, that's a wild concept. I've never heard of that before. That sounds like fun.
One of the podcasts that I listen to, they talk about C2C every so often. So that's what made me think about it, to bring it up. If you want to learn more about that, I would research it a little bit more because I don't know the ins and outs. I just like to bring it up to people so that they know it's out there. And there's so many different things out there for sure. College of Canton is one that I'm going to eventually get into because it sounds really fun. And like, you could get Jeremiah Smith as a freshman. That would be awesome to not have to worry about it in 3 years. That would have been cool. So it makes you really pay attention to college as well. It's really for the college game. If you love watching college football, that's kind of where you want to be there as well. So anything else you could think of that you wanted to discuss before we get out of here? It's pretty close to an hour, a little bit over.
No. I think we had another great show here. I think we were able to be informative here on some changes. I know you'll do your pitch, but please, if you have any changes or anything that sounds weird, or if there's anything you heard on the show that you liked and you implemented, let us know, because it takes that kind of material to help keep us going.
Yeah, absolutely. With that, like, anything that you can think of that we didn't talk about, bring it to our attention. Maybe we don't know anything about it, which we were trying to kind of do for you guys as well. So that's what I love about fantasy. Give it the idea process is always fun, pitching back and forth and stuff like that. So other than that, next week we're going to talk about we're going to have a games episode. Obviously, we're going to discuss the conference championships, AFC and NFC. So who's going to be playing in the Super Bowl, how they did, how my second season team did real quick. We won't discuss that too much. Hopefully it's as good as it has been. And then we're going to play some games. Definitely do a keep trade cut. Might talk a little bit about that. Might do a blind resume. Some other options that we're thinking about here. Just to kind of break it up a little bit. This episode was a lot of information. So we wanted to kind of break it up a little bit more of a fun episode next week. So, and we might have a guest as well. We'll see what happens there. So for Jeremy, I'm Mickey. This is the Dynasty with the Mountaintops. Check us out on YouTube, Apple, and Podbean. Also, check out our socials at dynastymttops on Blue Sky and X. Also, email us at dynastymttops@gmail.com for any comments, show ideas. What did you think about the episode? Like Jeremy said, give us your feedback. Is there anything that we missed? Is there anything that you thought was crazy? Probably a lot of it. Is there anything that we might be able to implement in our leagues? Let us know. Love to hear from you. And other than that, I'm Mickey, again, for Jeremy. This has been Dynasty with the Mountaintops. Have a great week. Good luck if you are playing in a playoff fantasy league. If not, enjoy the games.
Yeah, enjoy the games, absolutely. And go Stafford.
Go Drake.